Just give me 1 second, everyone. All righty. It seems the audio sounds good. What is going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden J here. Hopefully everyone is doing extremely well today. I am most certainly doing extremely well. As you can tell, we are back in, I don't want to say the old setup, but in the setup that hasn't been seen in a couple of weeks/months. So we are back at home, obviously in Mets territory. Well, it's really not Mets territory, but my room is. That aside, what is going on, everyone? I know it's been about 2 weeks since we did our last stream. Just wanted to come on here and obviously get back into the little free agent frenzy and, of course, the New York Mets offseason on how that's going to start off. But, yeah, what is going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden here. Hope everyone is doing extremely well. In today's stream, we are going to be really just kind of going over Mets news, minor league report, free agent news, what's going on with that. And, of course, we're going to get into your guys' comments, questions, and concerns, all of that great stuff. Before we get started really into today's stream, please, everyone, if you can, smash that like button. Let's get out there to some more viewers. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, don't hesitate. Drop them below. I know it says Mets Talk, but in reality, it's really just baseball talk. So, yeah, please feel free to drop anything in the comment section below. I see we got 15 people in the chat already, so I definitely always like to see that. And yeah, obviously hit that subscribe button. Let's get to 700 subscribers by the end of the new year. I think that could be an ideal, I guess, kind of goal for the channel. So yeah, obviously we got some great stuff to talk about in the world of the New York Mets with free agency. Obviously, I did do a couple videos the past week. Definitely going to start doing more videos in the offseason. I know last year I was kind of more so just going around live streams, but I definitely want to do a mixture of videos and live streams in the future. Just because, I like it. I think it's a great way to kind of, mix in with everyone. Everyone kind of gets to see it live and then also kind of pre-recorded. So yeah, hopefully that can continue to be on for the channel. But yeah, obviously we got some great stuff to talk about, obviously, in today's stream. It's kind of weird not coming on here and having a direct agenda. I know usually in the past for a lot of the live streams, it's usually been covering a game, but obviously the Mets haven't played a game and, the World Series is over. So there really, isn't a direct agenda to talk about, but obviously in terms of everything else, things have been going well for the New York Metropolitans. Obviously, they're already making moves, whether that was with bringing back Edwin Diaz, Daniel Vogelbach, a lot of their internal guys. Haven't made a whole lot of external moves. Definitely that is going to be the case. But yeah, let's not wasting any more time and let's get into some of your guys' comments, questions, concerns. So what's going on, everyone? Alex, Lane, Kevin, what's going on, guys? Trey, Haley, Ibindos, Peter, Gio, Baseball Media, Jack in the Box, Christopher, Stony, Marco, Lane, Cal, Kobe. What's going on, everyone? Stony with our first big question of the day says, do you think the Mets will get Trey Turner? And that's an interesting question. Obviously, the New York Mets have been linked to Trey Turner as a possibility. And, listen, when it comes to Trey Turner, I think it would be an interesting signing. Obviously, what is there not really to love about Trey Turner in terms of him as a player? He's in young age, obviously, about to hit his prime. He offers great versatility, great speed on the base paths. I mean, he's an all-star MVP type caliber player. He's going to hit you a high average. He's going to get on base a ton. He's going to be a base hit double type hitter. Can give you 20 or so home runs on a season. Definitely is more than capable of stealing 20, 30 bases on the base paths. He's a very speedy guy in the base paths, has great speed. So that is definitely something that you can offer big time. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes to Turner, I think it's no secret. I don't think any team would turn him away, and the finances have nothing to do with it. I think it's just more so of I guess you could say a congestion issue, is where would you put Turner? Obviously, right now, Trey Turner is a shortstop. And, last I checked, the Mets have Francisco Lindor for another 10 years. So you do have the possibility of moving him over to third. I know people were kind of making that argument last year when Correa was, on top of the market before, the Mets signed Eduardo Escobar. People were saying, hey, maybe, the Mets were to sign Carlos Correa, you shift him to third or maybe even second. This was kind of, during the McNeil, whatever. Could be even put McNeil in the outfield. So, I mean, there's been talks of that. But when it comes to Turner, you have the possibility of moving him over to third. I'm not super keen on that. I think he would do much better as a shortstop or even a second baseman. I don't really like Turner at third. I think he has the arm. I think he has the versatility. He has the defensive metrics at third. I just don't think the Mets' ideal goal is to put Trey Turner at third base. I think they'd much rather him as a shortstop or a second base. And obviously, hey, you have Jeff McNeil at second. So what do? Could you technically, in some sense, put McNeil in the outfield? I think a lot of that, where do you want to put McNeil thing is really off the books. I think he's had a good year. I think he's much more comfortable with what type of hitter he is, McNeil. So I don't really think he's worried about, him wanting to play second base. I think that's kind of all old news at this rate. So, yeah, I mean, as of right now, I don't really see a worry. If the Mets are to go after a guy like Trey Turner, could you potentially just throw him at second base? There's talks if you don't bring Nimmo back, you put him in center field. That's also another interesting observation. I wouldn't be too crazy about that one, just because he's never really played outfield before. So I'd kind of be something a little to be cognizant about how he developed there. There's also been talks of, split time as a DH, platoon him as a DH infielder, but I think he has great defense. He's a very athletic guy to just not use him as a defensive, character in the field. So we'll see. Kobe says, should the Mets go after Justin Verlander? Yeah, I'm actually going to be doing spoiler alert. Well, I'll mention it at the end of this video, but we will have a little video in regards to that later. But yeah, Mets going after Justin Verlander. You do have the possibility of the Mets going after him. When it comes to Justin Verlander, like I said, not to spoil too much of the video, but I'll say a little bit. Going into this season, I mean, Verlander was on the market last year, and same thing. Should the Mets go after Justin Verlander? He's 39 years old, coming off of Tommy John surgery, only pitched one game in the span of those 2 years before leading up to the season, and everyone was worried. Yeah, obviously he was going to get a one-year deal, relatively fair AAV, nothing too crazy. He wasn't getting a long-term deal or anything like that. But obviously I just think the Astros, having won a championship with him, having history with him as a Cy Young winner, now multiple, I just think they were kind of on the field of, hey, maybe, we bring him back and he does something. And I don't even think the most optimistic Houston Astros fans would have expected him to win Cy Young, win a World Series game, do phenomenal in the playoffs. We know he's really been a guy who struggled in the playoffs for Verlander, and just do what he did to Houston this year. I don't think anyone would have expected that. By far, he had one of his best seasons at the age of 39, coming off of Tommy John, not pitching in practically 2 years. I mean, arguably this was better than his MVP season. This was better than 2019, just about. I mean, it's absolutely crazy to see where Verlander is right now. And I think when you look at him, obviously he's going to be age 40. And I think the ultimate concern right now is that he wants a long-term deal. Well, not a long-term deal, but he wants a 3-year deal. He wants a multi-year deal. And I think that's going to be some type of deterrent for when teams to go after him, because he's 40 years old. He's going to be 40 years old. He wants a multi-year deal, which, okay, maybe not is the issue, but there's reports that Justin Verlander wants 40 million in terms of AAV. That's Scherzer-like money. And I mean, how many risks would you be taking there? I don't really think I need to spend much time on this channel going over why is that an issue, giving a 40-year-old pitcher Scherzer-like money. I mean, Scherzer's 36, 37. Okay, that's the same contract, but you have the 3 years. I feel once you enter that age 40, we'll see how things go. I mean, the risks you would take with Scherzer. I mean, obviously, it's really just the health, the consistency. If he gets dead arm towards the end of the season and in the playoffs, obviously, yes, if the Mets in some sense do lose Jacob deGrom, I think that could give the Mets a little bit more motivation to go after Verlander, have the, 1-2 punch still ace veterans. I think that's something to explore. I wouldn't have an issue if the Mets went after Verlander, but I'd be very cautious on having another Scherzer-like contract for a guy that's 3 years older than Scherzer. The risks you would be taking. I mean, Scherzer's a different story. He's not coming off of Tommy John. I mean, he's 3 years younger. Say what you want, but those 3 years are going to be crucial. I'd be very cautious. I really would. I really would. Cal says, thoughts on the Mets non-tendering Dominic Smith? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Honestly, not really much of a surprise. I think when it comes to Dominic Smith, I think it really has been kind of, short story. It's over. Really, I really loved what Dominic Smith has done with this organization. Obviously, 2020, the shortened season, was his most memorable season. He was a homegrown player. Highly viewed prospect, and I guess never really met up to his potential as a New York Met. Obviously, he has the potential of going to another team. He's young, hasn't hit his prime age yet. He's capable of going to another team and doing phenomenal-like things. I think that's definitely going to happen, unfortunately. I mean, I could easily see this being a Justin Turner situation 2.0. But overall, when it comes to Dom Smith, I just think it came to the point where do the Mets have time? Hold on. No, sorry. I was going to say, and I think when it came to Verlander, I just think it really came down to is how much time do the New York Mets have to wait for Dominic Smith? Obviously Pete Alonso is the first base role. In 2020, 2021, I think the Mets were kind of, saying, okay, maybe we could platoon both of those guys. Alonso wasn't super keen on playing in the DH role, started to do really well in it. Then I think he kind of just forgot about all that. And, obviously a lot of people were saying, hey, maybe just Dom needs more playing time. And, when it comes to Dom, we saw him. We saw him, with starting off in 2017 when he debuted. He had his fair share of, he had his fair share of inconsistencies, some issues. He definitely lost some weight, which I think benefited him a lot. He had the sleep apnea where, he was showing up to the ballpark late, little stuff like that, but he got a lot of that stuff taken care of. He got his sleeping under control, which is very crucial as an athlete. He lost a lot of weight, which everyone was saying is going to be huge for him. And he did both of those things, and he just never really changed. He was always a bench bat. He missed some time in 2019 due to injury. We know how he ended the 2019 season with that walk-off, and then came into 2020 and just was on fire. I mean, all of his offensive metrics went up. He was great in terms of slugging, going the opposite way, nice, sweet swing. And, and I guess when it came to him as a player, everyone was hoping he'd go into the 2021 season the same way he went into 2020. And I know 2020 you have to take with a grain of salt. Not much was going to really stick with a lot of players around the league, but a lot of people were hoping Dom would be that one player where it would stick. And unfortunately, it really didn't. He just did not hit for much power. I mean, he had his last home run was in May of 2021, and it was in Cincinnati, just got over the fence. I mean, 2021 started off the season decent. Defensively, really no major concerns. But, obviously he just didn't really live up to his potential in 2021. And everyone was kind of, they put him on the bench. They, kind of used him in that bench role. And people were saying, well, hey, maybe Dom just needs to, be an everyday type player and not this bench guy. And, it kind of came to the point where, excuses. So, I think I really did like the journey the Mets had with Dom, but I just think it came to the point where, you dealt with him for too long. You really got nothing else to go for. And yeah, obviously, I mean, I'm sure the Mets are going to go after another Dom Smith type role, considering, I mean, obviously right now you have Pete Alonso at first. No one's taking his spot. But, it's always good to have a backup. I don't really think Vogelbach is the best alternate. Need be if, Alonso needed a day off or just something happened, you could always plug him into that, for the 8th, 9th inning, whatever. But, it's always nice to have a defensive adjustment guy for the later innings or, something, whatever, for first base. So who knows? We'll see how that goes out there. But you know what? Dom Smith hasn't really been at the MLB level for quite some time. I mean, the Mets sent him down to AAA, really in the middle of the 2022 season. And they kind of just said, you know what? We don't really have any patience for him anymore. Let's just send him down to AAA and really just get him out of everyone's hair. And well, that's what they did. And didn't really, do much. Trey says, you think Brandon Drury? Yeah, you know what? Brandon Drury could be an interesting option. Obviously, he could be that DH type guy. Obviously, you have Eduardo Escobar at third base. But, let's look at Brandon Drury's stats. I know that he had a pretty decent time out in Cincinnati and then, of course, San Diego at the deadline. Let's see how he has been. Obviously, he did really well in the playoffs. Looked phenomenal, obviously, playing against the Mets. Let's look at some of his stats and some of his metrics from this season. So, obviously, Brandon Drury, he's, age 30. So, this would probably be a nice time if he really wanted to get, a long-term role, probably for him to get it right now, considering, he's at age 30. But, right now, Brandon Drury, I mean, really spreads the ball well. Obviously, he is a right-handed bat. You look at the 2022 hit spray chart, he really spreads the ball. Obviously, his power is going to left field, but I mean, he's definitely capable of going the opposite way for some light contact, for some singles. In terms of Brandon Drury, like I said, third baseman, could you, switch him and Eduardo Escobar around a little bit? You could if you wanted to. Defensively, I think they're honestly probably about the same. There's really no story to make when it comes to Escobar versus Drury defensively. I think it's really just offensively. That could be a possibility. Obviously, you sign Drury to, some cheap AAV deal, probably, 2-3 years. I don't think would hurt. Probably around the lines of what Escobar is on right now. I think Escobar probably have a little bit more on his resume. Considering Drury has really only been a dominant player. I don't want to say dominant player, but, an above average up to par player for really only 2 or so years now. So I think, Escobar obviously has more in his resume. He offers more as a hitter. So, you could probably see some type of Drury contract, 2-3 years, maybe a little less than what Escobar is making. But, something around those lines I think could be a possibility. Alex says, how should the Mets address the DH spot this offseason? Yeah, that's a really good question, Alex. And I actually am going to do a video of that probably once spring training comes around. Maybe I could do like an external in terms of free agency, but it's crazy to think with Dom Smith departing yesterday, the 3 candidates that were going to be the Mets DH going into this season in the 2022 season are all gone. Cano's gone, JD Davis is gone, and obviously now Dominic Smith is gone. So right now you do have Daniel Vogelbach, and that's really about it. Some people were looking into Jock Peterson, that left-handed bat. Some people are saying Michael Conforto come back, you platoon him, use him as a left-handed DH, whatever. But I think right now people are going to want some left-handed, a left-handed presence for that DH role, a nice power role in particular. I know I've said a lot of times on this channel, and I've said a lot of it during throughout the season, is the Mets need more power. Right now you have Pete Alonso. That's great, but Alonso could only bat 1 of 9 times in a lineup. you need more power in this lineup. I mean, unfortunately, Escobar didn't bring much throughout the whole season. A lot of people were hoping Escobar would be that nice power hitter behind Pete. Showed it in September, but not for most of the season. So if Escobar could do what he did in September next year, okay, you got two guys there. I mean, Lindor could decently give you 20 home runs, maybe 25. But in terms of that, I think you don't look for the long ball with Lindor. I think you look for more doubles, hits up the gap. Long balls are nice for him, though, I feel. But that's really it. I mean, McNeil is not a power hitter. Nimmo is not a power hitter. So, I mean, are you going to rely on guys like Canna and Marte for long balls? Probably not. More so an average on-base percentage guy. So, when you look for the long balls, you really only got one guy in this lineup whose job that is, and that's Pete Alonso. As we saw in this postseason, home runs wins the game. We saw the Padres do it in the wild card against the Mets. Home runs win the ball game. We've seen it all. And I think that's every playoff team where it's home runs win. It's only so rare that in a postseason game, really 3 runs is the equivalent to or 3 hits is the equivalency to 1 run. And I mean, maybe in the regular season, that's a different story. But I think when it comes to the Mets, you're definitely going to want to explore another power hitter. You really are. And I mean, I think Jock Peterson could have been a decent candidate, I felt. But the Mets are definitely going to have to explore some power approach. When it comes to the DH, I mean, you have multiple options. I mean, are they going to establish trust? And obviously Vogelbach to take on the DH role and, maybe a guy like Mark Vientos to split it with him. Maybe Francisco Alvarez, maybe Brad Beatty. I mean, are you really going to want to put trust in those 3 young guys who only have, a 2 weeks to a month of MLB experience under their belt and didn't even really play that adequate. So you have that. I mean, free agent market, obviously trades are on the table. Guys, in Colorado, Diamondbacks, they got some decent sluggers out there, whether that's CJ Cron, Christian Walker, potentially go after that. I would like a lefty, though. That would be nice. And I think Jock Peterson could have potentially been in that role, considering he is a left-handed presence. And I think that is something that the Mets were kind of hoping for. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, right now, I think we're just going to have to wait and see, how are the Mets going to want to go after this DH issue. And I think this is probably going to be one of their most crucial things to focus on this offseason. I really do. I think this is going to be arguably one of the most crucial questions for the New York Mets going into this offseason and throughout the winter is, how are they going to address their DH spot? Because that's literally what kind of killed them last season. That and the catcher. And catcher's a different story right now. But the DH spot, you didn't really see much productivity out of it. So who knows? Christopher says, I just want more offense. I want a big bat. Yeah, absolutely. I think offense is something that the Mets are going to need to address. You're going to need to go after a big bat, a lefty bat. That's something the Mets have to handle. That's something the Mets are going to have to tackle and I guess kind of deal with. So, yeah, I mean, we're just going to have to wait and see how the Mets are going to go after that. Stoney says, good job, bro. You beat me too. I give you a plus. Thank you, man. I owe it to you. Okay, I got you. What do you think the Mets are going to do after Cody Bellinger? Yeah, Cody Bellinger obviously is one character that the Mets have expressed interest in. When it comes to Bellinger, I don't know. He's in a really interesting – I mean, one, it's mind-boggling to think about that 3 years ago this dude was an MVP. And I guess kind of giving my little Cody Bellinger little rant, Bellinger's in an odd spot. And I think it really comes to the point where I think 2023, next season, is going to be make or break for Cody Bellinger and Christian Yelich. But just focusing on Bellinger, we saw he was dominant in the 2019 season, went into 2020, played okay, showed up in the playoffs, looked good, obviously got that elbow surgery in the offseason, and then just came into 2021 and just wasn't horrible and just was horrible. He was not good. His power production was down. He had that, with that long swing and the elbow surgery, it just affected him completely. And then everyone said, okay, take it with a grain of salt. He'll come back next year. And he is really, I mean, he had a couple times where he looked decent, but he just did not have it at all. He really just did not look present. He simply just didn't. And yeah, I mean, overall, I guess the Dodgers said, you know what, we have a better core. You know, we're going to go ahead and focus on our young guys. Obviously, Mookie Betts is probably the biggest outfield role for them now, and I think they kind of said, okay, we're going to deal with that. And obviously, they non-tendered him. Obviously, he was only re-signed to a 1-year deal, so it was a contract year for Bellinger on 1 year. You know, and I think the Dodgers were nice enough to give him that, and they kind of said, you know what, we don't really have much patience anymore. And they said, sayonara, non-tendered him, and now he's a free agent. So, I mean, we're going to have to wait and see, could a team go after Bellinger? I think he has the potential of being fixed. I could easily see a team signing him. And, I mean, will he ever go back to, his 2019 self? I really don't know. I think it's tough. I don't know if he'll ever go back to his 2019 self, but I could certainly see him being a good player. I could see him, going up to, back to 25, 30 home runs, maybe 270 average, but I don't know if he'll be like an MVP caliber player. I think he could be like a top 20, top 15 type guy. But yeah, I really don't know anymore with Cody Bellinger. It's kind of one of those things where you don't know. You're going to have to wait and see. And I think the same thing goes with Yelich. Yelich also is another candidate. Obviously, the Brewers are still holding on to him, but you look at Christian Yelich, obviously. I mean, his power's gone down. Yelich is a different story. Maybe he's a little bit better because he's getting on base a little bit more. He's walking. The OBP is a little bit more favorable, but he's not, hitting for much power. Defensively, he's gone much down, gotten slower. So, yeah, those two guys are really going to be an interesting story. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the future holds for, obviously, both Yelich and Bellinger. I don't know what the future holds for them. You want JV, of course. I wouldn't mind Rodon if we can't get DeGrom. Yeah, Rodon also is another character I think the Mets are going to look after. I think a lot of teams too. With Rodon, bringing him into a Mets rotation, obviously there is the remedy that it fixes your left-handed shortage in the rotation. That's something that the Mets have had an issue with this past season. Are you going to want to have David Peterson, your full soul lefty in the rotation? I've established enough times on this channel I want a lefty in the rotation. I really do. The Mets have a shortage of lefties in the rotation, in the bullpen. And I think the Mets bringing in Rodon would, solve that issue. He's a guy that, maybe along with someone else could fill the hole. If you do lose DeGrom, obviously, he could, him and maybe another guy could fill that hole. Obviously, he's going to be cheaper in terms of AAV. Probably get him, 3, 4, 5 years, something around those lines. And yeah, obviously, I mean, he's been getting better. Obviously, he's about to be age 30, so it's prime age for a pitcher just about. Obviously, Carlos Rodon is looking good. I guess, obviously, the only issue is kind of like with Walker, he hasn't pitched a whole lot in the last couple of years. Obviously, he missed a lot of time in 2018, 2019, 2020, and he really didn't break out until 2021 and obviously this past season, 2022. So, I mean, I just really don't know when it comes to it right now. Obviously, I think the Mets are going to sign him, but I think you probably would luck out there, obviously, with the AAV, considering, the history with him. Verlander's a GOAT, absolutely. Urza says, who are some non-tender free agents the Mets could go after? Yeah, let's take a little look-see and see let's take a little look-see and see some non-tender candidates for the Met. MLB non-tendered players. Yeah, let's see. These players have been non-tendered. So there's a decent amount. It's just, are they good or are they all kind of like cruddy? So let's stand by. Let's let my computer load. It's probably going to take some nice time. So let's give it a minute. But yeah, obviously, okay. So looking at, there's been a lot of non-tendered players, a lot of pitchers, a lot of catchers. So obviously, so it's showing it by teams. So Angels don't really have much to look into in terms of non-tendered candidates. A lot of pitching, a lot of mediocre to pretty bullpen arms. So really nothing to look out for the Angels when it comes to the non-tendered candidates. Astros, Josh Jang, nothing too crazy. Athletics, nah. Blue Jays, you got Raimel Tapia, Bradley Zimmer. Braves, some bullpen arms. Guillermo Heredia. Brewers, some bullpen arms. Cardinals, a couple outfielders. Cubs, Rafael Ortega. Obviously, Dodgers. You have some interesting guys: Cody Bellinger, Edwin Rios, and Luke Williams. So those are three guys that I think definitely could most likely sign with the team. You have obviously Bellinger, and then two utility type guys. So I think team can definitely look after them. Obviously, Giants, a lot of pitchers. Guardians, nothing too crazy. Mariners, nah. Marlins, Brian Anderson. Interesting guy, obviously. Hasn't really had his full potential, what Miami hoped for him. Utility player, he could be a potential to look after. Although I think the Mets would much rather look after an outfielder. And I do not believe Brian Anderson is capable of playing the outfield. If he wants to, say why not, but I don't think the Mets are going to look into that. Let's see, who else do we have? Actually, I'm going to share the screen with you guys. So, let me share my screen with y'all. There we go. So now you guys could kind of see a little bit of everything. I'll do it like this, so it looks nicer. So yeah, obviously Angels, no. Astros, Athletics, Blue Jays, Braves, Brewers, Cardinals, Cubs. So we went up to that. D-backs, Dodgers, Giants. So yeah, we're kind of at, like I said, the Marlins. Obviously the Mets, DFA Dominic Smith. We went over that, and they obviously DFA Sean Reed-Foley. Not much to comment on there. Nationals, Eric Fetty, whatever. Luke Voigt, I think he could be an interesting guy for teams to look for this offseason. I don't think the Mets would necessarily go after Luke Voigt. I don't think they have much of a plan or interest to go after Luke Voigt, but I think he could definitely be a decent guy. Obviously, led the league in home runs in 2020, so hey, who knows? Maybe someone could look into him. I don't know. We'll see how things go. Oops, sorry. Obviously, Orioles, no. Padres, Jorge Alfaro. He could honestly be an interesting guy. He's a catcher, has some nice pop in his bat, so you never know if there's a team out there that wants to convert him into just a full-time DH and use him as, an alternate catcher in case something happens. Who knows? Maybe some type of hitting coach works with Jorge Alfaro. I think he could honestly be a really interesting fit for certain teams. I really do. I think he could be an interesting pick for a lot of teams out there. So we'll see. Jorge Alfaro is a guy. Obviously, the Phillies and Pirates have no one. Rangers, Rays, some pitching. Ryan Yarbrough, he could be an interesting candidate for a team to look after. He could definitely look into something. The Red Sox, obviously, Frankie Cordero. I think much is there. The Reds DFA'd, not DFA'd, my apologies, non-tendered. A lot of guys. Everyone from some infielders to some pitching. Rockies, Garrett Hampson, nice utility guy, definitely could be worth something. Royals, nothing too crazy. Tigers, Jeimer Candelario, interesting pick. I think he could be a guy that someone could look after. Considering that the third base market out there at MLB is really high right now, I think Candelario had a decent season. I mean, he's shown a lot of light. You never know if there's a team out there that is going to try and look after him for something. New York native. So, yeah, I mean, he didn't have the best season this year. 13 home runs, 50 ribbies, 217 average, 272 OBP, 633 slugging, 75th percentile in max exit velocity. Otherwise, not much to impress there. 54th percentile in barrel percentage. So he doesn't really have much in terms of decency there. But you never know. He could be a guy that, a team like the Orioles or, some team that's really trying to get hot could look after. Harold Castro, Willie Castro, the Castro guys, also be another guy. Twins have no one. White Sox, Adam Engel. Completely forgot this dude absolutely existed. He is just, yeah, I completely forgot that he has existed, Adam Engel. So yeah, I guess he could be a decent guy. And then obviously the Yankees have non-tendered nobody. So I guess Urza, kind of to answer your question, I mean, really Cody Bellinger would be the, I guess, number one pick for a lot of teams around baseball. Obviously some guys like Kyle Lewis were also on that category, but they traded him away before he could. You got some decent bullpen arms in there. You really do. You never know. Like I said, relievers are kind of streaky, kind of focus year by year. So, maybe the Mets go after one of the bullpen arms that I briefly went over or just didn't even bother. So, there's a possibility there. Connor says Conforto as DH platoon if we going that route again. Yeah, I mean, that would most likely be a possibility. Like I said, I would like the Mets to bring back Nimmo and Conforto. Not just Nimmo or not just Conforto. If you're talking about Conforto, why not bring both? If it really comes to it, yeah, let's say you do lose Nimmo, okay, then I would say you do target Conforto, and Kenna in left, you put Marte back in center. The Mets have said they had no issue with that, and then you put Conforto in right, because we all know Conforto is not playing center field. That's he's going to go back to his position in right. And, there was the whole debate last offseason, who plays center, Marte or Nimmo. And there was that whole, spiel and kind of craziness. So, yeah, I think that would kind of solve that issue. But, yeah, I would absolutely love for the Mets to bring back, if they could, both Nimmo and Conforto. And, you have an outfield of, Kenna, Nimmo, Marte. Maybe you platoon Conforto with Marte, and then otherwise you put Conforto in a DH spot as a lefty along with Vogelbach. So I guess, definitely Conforto could bring two good sides, I guess. I guess the only concern with Conforto is him offensively. Our Mets fans can have the patience. Are they going to be willing to see how he is? It could be a good revenge tour for Conforto, but it could be a complete nightmare for Conforto. Obviously, defensively, there's no worries with Conforto. Defensively, he's always really been a good defensive guy. He'll definitely win a Gold Glove wherever he signs with. Hopefully, if it's the Mets, we'll see. But Conforto's definitely going to win a Gold Glove one of these years. I would not be surprised. He's a phenomenal guy in the outfield, so he'll definitely win something. Plus, Dom had a sleeping disorder. That's why he struggled in the outfield. That is true. I know the Mets made attempts on putting him in the outfield, and it did not work. Eric says, what's up? I'm doing well, man. Gregory says, would y'all rather Conforto or Bellinger? Not as a replacement for Nimmo, but as a fourth outfielder when Marte or Nimmo inevitably get injured or they could just need a day off. Honestly, right now, I would probably say Bellinger. Just because I think you can get a little bit more out of him. Obviously, taking a look-see at Cody Bellinger, we'll pull up some of his metrics. Obviously he's 27 years old, Cody Bellinger. He's a left-handed bat, so that's also with Conforto. Throws lefty too, so I guess that's really the only difference compared to Conforto. He's great defensively, though. 71st percentile in sprint speed, 92nd percentile in OAA, which is pretty much outs above average. Let me pull up these stats. Yeah. 65th percentile in outfielder jump, and then a new stat that Baseball Savant just added, which is 65th percentile in arm strength. So, yeah, obviously defensively, I mean, he's been really good. You could kind of use him as a utility guy, believe it or not. The Dodgers have put him at first every now and then, put him in center, put him in right. So you could definitely kind of move him around a little bit. However, yeah, offensively, he did not look too good, not walking, striking out way too much. Not getting any hard contact, not really getting any barrels. The ball's kind of just dying off once it hits the bat. It's not moving. So, yeah, I mean, you could kind of really see what went wrong for Bellinger. But you never know. There is the potential that Bellinger can get back to somewhat a decency. Will he get back to his 2019 self? Like I said, we'll see. I don't know. I think 2023 is kind of going to be the make or break. He's young. He's 27, but, how much time are teams going to have for him? Verlander is a yes for me. That's good. I'd say so. So it seems majority of the people are for Bellinger. Trey's for Bellinger. Cal Alex, Peter, Alyssa, they all say Bellinger. And then we have 2 Confortos. So 2 people think Conforto. So we'll see. Trey says, is Carlos Correa an option for the Mets at third base? It could be, but I doubt they'd go after it. I doubt it. Stoney says, me too. Bellinger's young. He'll turn it around. He might need a change of scenery. Yeah, that could be the case. Marco says, what area of concern should the Mets focus their offseason on? I mean, yeah, it's probably going to be the DH and bullpen. I think the DH and the bullpen role are going to be the 2 biggest things that the Mets have to tackle going into this season. You can't have 2, bullpen, that's easy. Well, it's not easy, but it's a reasonable thing that all teams are going after. But the DH, you gotta get someone in that role. I mean, you really do. Whether you sign someone, I wouldn't really feel comfortable if the Mets went in with the internal option of Vientos and Alvarez. I think you need someone with more experience, someone who's proved himself more. I don't even think the Mets would really even go with that. I think they're going to want another guy along with Vogelbach, whether that's some type of great power bat or whoever. So we'll see. But yeah, those are the 2 things the Mets kind of really got to concern. Matthew says, what do you do in the winter? Haha. Well, yeah, obviously baseball is majority of my life. Usually in the winter, I just sit around and count how many days until baseball starts, I guess. Who's better, Bellinger or Yelich? In terms of right now, I probably have to give the hand to Yelich, maybe. Stoney says, when do you think teams will start signing these free agents I've been waiting patiently. Yeah, probably once the winter meetings happens. Usually the winter meetings is when teams, is when all the GMs get together. If you guys don't know what it is, it's usually like the first week in December for the most part. And usually that's when a lot of moves start to happen because GMs are meeting. I guess kind of when it comes to the financial part, everyone's kind of up to speed. So usually around the winter meetings, a lot of that stuff happens. Sports Fan says in 2020, Hernandez's slider location was much better, and he had a 3.16 ERA. In 2022, he left it in the heart of the plate more and had a 6.35 ERA. If the Mets feel they could fix his command, he could be a decent pickup. Yeah, I also do too. He's young. Marlins have always had some sneaky young pitching, so I think put him in a room with Hefner, put him on the mound with Hefner, work on his command. I think that's that's an easy fix. LGM. Kobe says, I'm hoping the Mets bring back Conforto to a cheap and short-term deal. Yeah, I mean, that'll probably be the case if that does happen. Obviously, Conforto, like I said, with Conforto, it's hard right now. I mean, him and Boris want to go after a long-term deal, and I just think it comes down to are the Mets willing to give Conforto a long-term deal. I think there's going to be a team out there that's going to give him a long-term deal, no doubt. But I just think right now it really is going to be tricky. It really is. Trey says, could signing Kodai Senga be the key to the Mets offseason? Yeah, he also has been one guy. Obviously, he was in the NPB League out in Japan. He's kind of been the talk of United States baseball this year. Obviously, he's never played in the MLB or played in the U.S., but there is most likely a rumor that he is going to sign with an MLB team this offseason, and we'll see. He is a sneaky pitcher, has some interesting stuff. Has a fork ball, which is really weird. It's like a breaking pitch with like a cutter. Really weird stuff. Haven't really seen that for quite a while or really ever. Honestly, we'll see. He could potentially be a possibility. I think he'd more so be the case with, him and a Rodon if you lose DeGrom. But yeah, Kodai Senga, I've read a little bit about him, seen some of his stuff. Nice mechanics, nice movement on his pitches, nice fastball, cutter, forkball. So he has some decent stuff to him. I think the Mets could potentially explore. Obviously, you're signing him out of the MPB League, so he'll have MLB experience. So likely you're going to get him on a cheaper deal more so. So could be a possibility, where he'll probably sign with an MLB team. It just depends where. Kobe says, you keep Nito as number one. Find a way to just eliminate McCann. I think Nito will have a breakout season. Get a backup. Alvarez, not ready. Yeah, I mean, I think right now, that's kind of an interesting point. I guess it just comes to how you're going to eliminate McCann. I think that's really the number one concern is how are you going to get rid of McCann. You could send him on a rocket ship somewhere, sure, and put him on Mars, and he could start his own league out there. But yeah, I don't really know what the Mets are going to do with McCann. I think it kind of comes to the point where you have three options or two options. Just play him out. Or, I mean, I think you have multiple options. You could just exterminate the contract, Jason Bay style. The Mets did that with Jason Bay. He had 1 year left on his contract. They exterminated it. McCann has 2, so could you potentially do that? You could. You absolutely could. Could the Mets exterminate McCann's contract? Could the Mets... I mean, really, I guess what it comes to is could they exterminate the contract? Or are you going to use him as an alternate? Paying him that much, I think the Mets have kind of just said, forget it. We took the L and just waste the money, or just use him out there until this season. But I don't think the Mets are going to want to deal with McCann at the plate and behind the plate for another full year. I don't think Mets fans are going to be able to deal with that. So when it comes to it right now, I don't know what the Mets are going to do. Absolutely, I agree with you. I mean, I'd be a little worried with having Nito as the alternate and then the backup Alvarez. I just think that's, I mean, Nito has been great. He's definitely picked up the fort a lot this season. I mean, considering Alvarez was definitely out for a lot of this year. Not Alvarez. McCann was out for a lot of this season, and then Nito kind of took the realms, and then Alvarez joined in September. Only caught like 1 game, but still was more of an offensive guy. And obviously catcher's offense has been dead, so that's also something to consider. But yeah, I just don't really know what the Mets are going to do, honestly, when it comes to the catcher position. It's tough. Marco says, when are their winter meetings? Yeah, usually the first week of December. Defense at catcher will be the difference in winning and losing this year with the new rules about not being able to throw. Yeah, obviously pickoffs, you can only get, I think, 3? So that'll definitely be an interesting thing to see, how a lot of MLB teams are going to tackle that. Mets definitely need a defensive catcher. They really do. But, you also want a guy who could decently hit some average. Obviously, catcher position has just evolved so much the last couple of years. It's just the one position that the Mets, you really want to get right. If the Mets are going for a nice rotation that's young, has, 2 veteran aces, and, is trying to be one of the best rotations in the game, they're going to have to try and get a good defensive catcher behind the plate to call those guys, to make those guys successful. So yeah, I mean, we're just gonna have to wait and see how the Mets are going to address this. But I agree, they definitely need to fix something with their catcher. They really do. Cal says, "Did you see the Mets are making a new jumbo board?" I did see that. Yeah, I know. I saw it last year, but I think they're starting the construction this year, so we'll see. I think that'll be a nice little addition to Citi Field. We'll see how it looks. The pictures look pretty nice. I know it's not really discussed a lot in the baseball world. It's more so people that go to Citi Field, or unless you're a Citi Field fanatic. I definitely think Cohen has fixed up Citi Field pretty nicely. I mean, obviously a lot of the, LED lights and stuff, and obviously now the new jumbo board, they're making that bigger. Yeah, I definitely think Cohen should continue to, make the ballpark look nice, For a nice team, got to have a nice ballpark. Kobe says, David Peterson definitely makes the 2023 starting rotation in some capacity. In the event that the offseason leaves some space in the rotation, what do they do with McGill? Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, I think if the Mets go after a lefty, whoever that is, Rodon, whatever, I really don't think Peterson even is going to make the 5 start. I think you'll probably have Peterson, McGill as the 6-7. Maybe you start off Peterson in the bullpen still. I'd be a little worried with that, though, just because the command, the high walk percentage, you have less room for error considering you're a bullpen arm. So, if anything, I'd rather Peterson in the rotation than McGill. I think McGill could continue to develop in a bullpen role, but I definitely like to see him pitching out there more. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, the 6 and 7 starters are definitely going to be used. There's no doubt. Yeah, who knows? Maybe Peterson will be the number 5 starter. We'll see. But as of right now, I definitely would like to, if it's those two, it'd probably be Peterson over McGill. Probably one because he's a lefty, like I said. So we'll see how things go there. Michael says, what's your favorite Baseball City Connect jersey right now? Probably the Marlins ones. I really do like the Marlins ones. I think they're pretty fresh, pretty clean. I would definitely purchase one of those. I'd like to purchase one of those. I'm trying to get the hat too. Those are pretty nice ones, if you ask me, in my opinion. So probably gonna get a Marlins one. I like those. The Astros ones are pretty nice. I always thought those were kind of clean. I've always kind of had a nice little liking for the Astros ones, the Space City ones. Hopefully the Mets release there soon. I believe last season in 2022, I want to say they released like 5 or 6 or 7. I think it was like 5, 6, 7 in terms of teams that release City Connect uniforms. So the Mets could definitely have nice ones. What they look like, I really couldn't tell you. Maybe something with, being in a city, the apple, blue and orange theme maybe. Although, teams have City Connect jerseys that aren't even their team colors, so you never know. But I think the Mets would most likely want to keep theirs around, I guess kind of their team, colors and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see. But as of now, I'd probably say the Marlins and Astros are probably the two ones that I like. Yeah, I don't know. I've just always kind of had a liking to those ones. I think the Marlins are pretty clean. Trey says, I would personally push to sign Rodon and Senga together, which would combine to equal the AAV DeGrom would cost at its highest end. Yeah, and absolutely. And I said that before, Trey, and I agree with you 100% on that. That would be the worst case if you don't go after DeGrom, that I think would keep some Mets fans still optimistic about the rotation. You have two guys who are, obviously Rodon is a pretty dominant arm. He's definitely, a top tier, top 5, 10 Cy Young caliber player. And then obviously, Kodai Senga, he'll be an interesting guy, obviously, still developing in terms of the MLB, so we'll see how he can go there. And Matthew says Senga is a perfect fit for the payroll situation. Agreed. Big upside, number 3, like Bassett was, hopefully throwing behind DeGrom. And Scherzer, absolutely. And like I said, let's say you somehow do keep DeGrom still. You could still go after Senga. You could still go after Rodon. I just think it'd be less likely, but more so Senga over Rodon if you keep DeGrom, considering he is going to be on a cheaper deal rather than Rodon. You could probably get him for a much shorter and cheaper deal, considering he's from a different league. He hasn't really played in the MLB, and typically guys that come over from other leagues like the KBO and the NPB typically come over on cheaper deals, and then once they've proven themselves at an MLB level, because still baseball but different leagues, you never know. Then they typically do get kind of larger contracts, as you could say. Gallo says Mets need to open up a checkbook. Epler needs to do his damn job and get us the big fish. Make moves and take a chance. We want to win this time again and go deep into the playoffs. Yeah, absolutely, man. I think that is really the end goal for the Mets for hopefully the seasons forever. They obviously want to make all the errors go bye-bye. The Mets want to make the moves that they need to make so they could be a successful team. I absolutely agree with you on that. But, yeah, we'll see. Obviously, I think Epler and Cohen are going to be working busy this offseason. All teams are going to start off slow. Keep in mind, last year, everyone was saying, oh, Epler makes some moves. And then, literally 3 days before the lockout, he signed 3 guys, and obviously Marte, Escobar, and Canna. And then, boom, he brought a Scherzer right after. And everyone's like, oh, my goodness, Billy Epler's doing so much. So you got to give it time. Last year at this time, obviously the lockout wasn't even a thing yet. It was a couple weeks away. But, the Mets haven't signed anyone big, in really November last season. So, like I said, give it time. I really do say, it's not like last year. The free agency last year was really weird. It was really just November. And then the week before spring training you had. So we had this huge free agent frenzy practically. Like I said, give it time. These signings are going to be happening all throughout. We're not going to see 10 guys sign in the same day after the winter meetings. No, it's going to be completely different. Like I said, there's no lockout, so teams are going to be operating more different. You got to keep that in mind. Don't be thinking, oh, just because last year it's going to be like this year. No. So, like I said, give it time. If it's like January and we haven't done anything, okay, then maybe people could start getting, annoyed. But yeah, like I said, right now I wouldn't, start getting too nervous. The Mets have plenty of more time, no one's really signed anyone big. What's been the biggest move this offseason? Probably the Mets with Edwin Diaz or think it's probably been the most expensive deal, yes, but I mean, a lot of the deals haven't been too big. Hasn't really been many big trades or any big free agent signings, really. Besides, qualifying offers and Edwin Diaz staying. That's really only been the biggest, probably the biggest offseason news for them for really all of MLB so far. So, like I said, give it time. In terms of Twitter, seeing if there's anything big. Obviously, when it comes to Kodai Senga, everyone's saying that the Mets and Giants are the two front runners, along with the Padres. So we'll see how that'll go on. Yoenis Cespedes is playing for Cuba in the 2023 World Baseball Classic. That's an interesting take. See how that goes for them. So yeah, if you guys have any more comments, questions, concerns, do not hesitate. Drop them. Drop them in the comment section below. Do not hesitate. Be about the Mets. Be about anything. Seth says, thoughts on the Twins New Jerseys? Yeah, they're okay. I think the M kind of looks like the Marlins logo, and I really think they simplified it. I kind of like their old jerseys better. That's funny. They actually just pulled up on my screen. Yeah, they're okay. I think they kind of simplified them a little bit. Not really big on the hats. I think it kind of just looks like a boring M with really no detail in it. I'm not really big on them, but maybe someone is. I think they could have probably maybe done a little bit more. I'll pull them up. Why not? Stay on here for another 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm not really big on them. I think they look okay. Like I said, I'm not really too crazy on them. I mean, out of all of them, I probably like the one on the end. I don't know who number 64 is, but yeah, I'm not a big Twins guy. Is that? It's not who's number 64 in the Twins? Well, it's definitely not Williams Astudillo. I can tell you that. Yeah, I have no idea who that is. It's definitely not Williams Astudillo. I can tell you that. But yeah, I think the one on pretty much the far right one looks pretty nice. The one Buxton's in is okay. I mean, I wouldn't buy it. It kind of looks boring. The one Joe Ryan's in the middle is decent. There's really no difference between the one and the left besides the pants. The one on the far left is okay. I kind of think they're going with their old route of the old Twins jerseys from like the early 2000s and 90s. Being honest, I don't really like them. I think they really kind of just simplified them. I think they could have definitely have yeah, I think they simplified them too much. So yeah, so probably gonna call it a stream here though, everyone, as we are about to hit the hour mark. So we'll give off my little little final farewell, and everyone can get on with the rest of their day. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to come on here, talk some free agency, Q&A style streams. Usually in the off season, that's how a lot of things go. I usually do more so Q&A style streams, just because that's really all like I kind of go with in the off season. So yeah, I mean, we'll yeah, so we'll definitely see how things go. But otherwise, yeah, I really do appreciate everyone for popping into today's stream. Obviously, definitely appreciate y'all for popping in. Obviously going over the Mets offseason, the overall MLB offseason, going over, a little bit of the Mets farm system, free agency, guys that are some of the non-tendered candidates, obviously talking about guys like Cody Bellinger, Christian Yelich, if they'll have a resurgence, what the future kind of holds for them. Obviously going over a lot of the Mets roster construction, Billy Appler, Steve Cohen, all that great stuff, going over some, City Connect jerseys, reviewing the Twins jerseys, and all of that great stuff. And of course, most importantly, going over your guys' phenomenal comments, questions, and concerns. I definitely always do. I always do appreciate when you guys are dropping phenomenal comments, questions, concerns. Definitely, that definitely puts a nice smile on my face. I always do Always appreciate you guys for that great stuff. Definitely the nonstop support lately has been phenomenal. One little reminder, and then I will be getting on my way. There will be a video up probably tomorrow in regards to some pitchers that the New York Mets could go after. So yeah, definitely do keep an eye out for that. That'll probably be up probably tomorrow. So we'll see how things go there. But yeah, otherwise, I do appreciate everyone for tuning in to today's stream as always. LFGM, like I said, if you are rewatching this on replay, kudos to you. Like I said, kudos to you. Obviously, feel free. Hit that like button so we can get out there to more people. Hit that subscribe button. Hit on that post notification button so you never miss a stream or video. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, drop them in the comment section below. And yeah, otherwise, we are at the hour mark. That's really all I got for all of you guys today. LFGM, let's go Mets. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Till next time, baseball fans. See ya.